everyone, this is going to be a video showing my Marathon Mini TSAR watch. Now, if you're familiar with Marathon watches on forums and here on YouTube, you'll know that the watch community or EDC community has kind of given their own nomenclature to the Marathon products. So Marathon calls it the Divers Quartz Medium, but if you hear the name, Mini TSAR being thrown around, that's this guy here. Now, if the naming of the Marathon watches confuses you like it did confuse me when I first started researching these watches, I made a quick cheat sheet to try and clear things up really quickly. So the four-letter acronyms all end with SAR, so people will call them GSAR, TSAR, CSAR. SAR just stands for Search and Rescue, which is what these dive watches are kind of designed for. Now the GSAR, G stands for Government, T stands for Tritium, C stands for Chronograph, and J stands for Jumbo. However, the first three on top of the list all have Tritium, so you may be wondering why only the TSAR, has the Tritium name. That's why it's kind of confusing, but the GSAR basically is the same as the TSAR, but the GSAR is the automatic version. The TSAR has a quartz movement in it, and then the CSAR, the C is chronograph, so it has two extra buttons on the side, obviously, to actuate the chronograph function of the watch. All three of these are the same size at 41 millimeter, which is a pretty standard size for a dive watch. So moving on to the JSAR, it's a 46 millimeter watch with no tritium vials inside, and it uses Mariglow for its illumination. So hopefully that gives you a really quick rundown of the four most popular models of Marathon watches out there, and you can go about researching them a little bit easier. So hopefully that helps. Again, this is not on that list. It would be the mini version of the TSAR. Now, I'm not sure what Marathon means by medium. When you hear the word medium, you kind of, you feel like it implies that there's something smaller and bigger, but there's nothing smaller than this guy, at least right now. So I'm not sure if Marathon plans to make an even smaller one. I kind of doubt it. This is already pretty small for a dive watch, but 36 millimeter width, so it's about 5 millimeters smaller than the kind of really popular GSAR, TSAR, and CSAR watches. Now, why would you want a dive watch that's a little bit smaller than the regular? Well, if you have really small wrists like I do, it actually fits really well. So I needed another watch, something a little bit smaller than what my other dive watch, which was a Seiko Monster, was. For certain sports I'd do, for such a small wrist, for me anyway, a 42 millimeter dive watch was just a little bit too big. And, high impact sports, mountain biking, things that you're moving around a lot on, you can really feel it bouncing around on your wrist. And I even bought a rubber strap for my Seiko to see if it could hold it, a little bit better on my wrist, but it still was a little bit annoying. So small watches definitely do have their place. My wrist size, I think, is just a little bit bigger than 6.5 inches circumference, which is pretty tiny. I have really small wrists, so I'm really glad Marathon came up with that. Show you the packaging real quick. Again, Marathon packaging is kind of no bells and whistles. It's just straight to the point, but still very nice. The box here opens up, and see on the inside of the lid it says Swiss made, which indeed all of the Marathon watches are 100% Swiss made, which is kind of cool. A little sheet fitting the rubber strap, which I'll talk about, and you just get a little user manual, I guess, for the for the watch, pardon me. So that is the box, and I'll put that to the side. So a little bit about the watch first, as you look at it tick away. As I said before, it's 36 millimeters in diameter, or 44 millimeters lug to lug, and the lug width is 18 millimeters. So the regular dive watches, the 41 millimeter diameter dive watches, will have a lug width of 20 millimeters. So if you're going to go out and buy a new strap for this, if you're into NATO straps or Zulus, just make sure you get the 18 millimeter width, obviously, so it fits. It has a sapphire crystal for the glass up front, and it does have an anti-reflective coating on it. Now obviously you do see some reflections, but it definitely does help in the bright daylight. Case material is 316L stainless steel, which is pretty common in dive watches. and it has a water resistant rating to 300 meters. What's really cool about the mini TSAR here is that it's just as rugged and has almost the exact same specs, durability wise and stuff, as its bigger brothers, but it's a heck of a lot cheaper. It's almost about, I'd say, 2/3 of the price usually of the bigger ones. I don't know why, but it's kind of cool because if you have a small wrist like me, you're looking for a small watch anyway, you kind of get everything you would get in a bigger watch just in a smaller package. The movement inside the watch is the ETA FO6 high torque quartz, and it's rated to plus or minus 0.3 seconds per day, so it's a very accurate movement. I know a lot of watch fans love the automatic movements, but I decided for my next watch, or when I was buying this watch, I wanted it to be quartz. I just had enough, playing around with automatic movements. I don't have what's that thing called? One of those watch holders that keeps the automatic movement wound. So I opted to just get a quartz, just trouble-free. Replace the battery every few years, and it's good to go. Illumination on this guy is tritium mixed with some Mariglow, but most of it is tritium. All the hour markers are tritium. The 0 marker on the bezel and the second hand is the Mariglow paint, which is still very, very bright. I'll talk more about the tritium valves and my experience in a second. It is ISO 6425 rated, as with all marathon dive watches. And it comes with this very nice vulcanized rubber strap, which, again, I'll talk about more in a second. A little bit more about the movement in the watch. It is equipped with a end-of-life indicator, so when the battery starts to get low, the second hand will tick in 4-second increments instead of 1-second increments, which is kind of cool. I guess it saves a little bit of battery life, and it just obviously is a visual indicator that, hey, you need to change your battery soon. I've had no problem with scratches. You can see I got this early last summer, so it's been just under a year now, and I've been wearing it almost every single day, and no scratches yet. Fingers crossed. Bezel is very nice. It has 2 clicks per second, so that's 120 clicks for the full rotation. And of course it is unidirectional, like many dive watches. I don't dive myself, but I do use the bezel quite often just as a timer. So there you go. Very nice bezel. I actually really like the white on black markings on the bezel. I wasn't sure if I liked that because, the black paint will scratch eventually, but the white on black, again, marathon watches are made for a purpose. They're made for search and rescue, simple but rugged. And the white on black, I think, makes it really easy to read, more so than black on stainless steel. So I'm glad that they actually decided to use that. The face of the watch looks a little bit cluttered just because it is so small. Again, 36mm diameter watch, you're not working with too much of a surface. So if you kind of compare this to the 41mm diameter watches, the face just looks a little bit more cluttered just because everything is closer together. But again, it's still very easy to read. The numbers stand out very well, and of course you have the tritium valves there for low light conditions. You can see there's a date window between the 4 and 5 o'clock markers. And going to the back here, hopefully you guys can see that. Oh, it's upside down. The reflection might make it a little bit difficult to read, but you can see the ISO 6425 rating there. And what else do I want to show you? The birth dates. So each one has a unique serial number and the month and year that it was made. So mine was made in November 2014, so it was about just under a year old when I bought it, probably just sitting in the warehouse. It does have a screw down crown at the 3 o'clock position, and you do have the radioactive symbol beside the 3, because if you don't know, tritium is a radioactive material, and they're inside the little vials, and that's what powers the illumination. Alright, so if you're wondering how this looks side by side to one of its bigger brothers, I actually went to visit a good friend of mine, and he has the TSAR, so the automatic 41mm diameter dive watch, very similar to this. It looks almost the exact same, just a little bit bigger. Anyway, so I went and took a picture of them both side by side. I'll put the picture right here in the video. Mine is the one obviously that's smaller to the left, and you can just see side by side this one is quite a bit smaller, but again it holds all the same features and ruggedness that the bigger one also boasts, which is pretty cool, so that you can get basically the exact same watch just in a smaller size for us small wristed folk. Trying to zoom in really closely here, hopefully my shaky hands can show you, but right by the 6 marker you can see on either side it says Swiss made, hopefully. Again, this watch among all the other marathon watches are Swiss made with a Swiss movement inside. And beside the 9 o'clock marker you can see, hopefully if it focuses, the marking for H3. Now I actually didn't notice that at first, my friend pointed that out to me, but the best guess for me what the H3 stands for is the radioactive isotope that the tritium uses. So again, talking about the tritium vials really quickly, tritium vials work as they produce their own I guess energy to illuminate itself, so you don't need to charge it like other glow-in-the-dark paints. It's just always illuminated by itself, and the way it does that obviously is the slow decay of the radioactive material, which is of course helium-3 or hydrogen-3, pardon me. Not a chemistry buff at all, but there you go. Tritium does have a useful life. I think after about 15 years it will die down substantially, so you can either get them replaced, but honestly in 15 years time you'll probably get a new watch. My experience with tritium is very good. Tritium for me, obviously as a non-search and rescue civilian, still does come in handy. A lot of the time, especially in the winter months, your watch will sit under your sleeve during the day, and if you just pop it open really quickly to check the time, sometimes I have noticed with other watches that use the glow-in-the-dark paint, I just can't see it at all. But with tritium, it's a nice bright glow in all situations, and you don't have to charge it first, so definitely still a very good illumination source for sure. The crown again is a screw-down crown, and it's nicely knurled, so you can easily get a good grip on that. It has the 2-step click, as do most of these watches. So the first click is to adjust the date there. I'm not going to adjust it right now because it is the correct date, and the second click out adjusts the time. So you can see it is a hacking movement, which means it stops the second hand, so if you want to get super accurate you can definitely do that. Okay, push it back in and screw down the crown. Alright, so let's talk quickly about the strap that comes with the mini TSAR here. It is a vulcanized rubber strap which uses a natural rubber, so it's very, very soft and pliable right out of the box. It doesn't really need to be broken in, it's super comfy as soon as you get it. A lot of people will replace the strap almost immediately with a stainless steel bracelet, which by the way Marathon does make an 18mm wide stainless steel bracelet if that's the choice you want to go with. But I think this rubber strap is actually one of the best ones that comes with a watch. Honestly, this is my favorite watch strap now that I have on any of my watches. In fact, I actually did buy some NATO straps for this watch, and I was trying them out for a bit, but honestly nothing, absolutely nothing is as comfortable as this super soft rubber. Another cool little feature about this watch is you'll notice that on the outside here you only really see one hole, and that is the hole that I use for my size wrist. So what Marathon did, which I really think is quite a unique and kind of cool idea, is they have these kind of pre-punched holes, but they don't go all the way through the strap. So what you do is you have your wrist measured, and then you just poke one, the one that you will use for yourself, for your wrist, that works for you. So when you have it on your wrist, it's a very, very clean look because there's no holes along the strap. However, what I did was you can see this one here, but there's a very faint one here too. I actually punched 2 holes, not by accident. This is the one that I use most often. You can see it's a little bit wider just from using it a lot more. But this one, the tighter one, is the one I use when I'm doing, again, a sports that a watch would usually be bouncing around on my wrist on. It's just to hold it a little bit tighter on my wrist But you know, it's not tight where it's cutting off circulation or anything. But regularly, casually, I do like to use the one notch that's a little bit looser. However, a cool little feature about that, if I put on my watch really quickly. So right now I have the watch with the hole that is a little bit bigger. And what's cool is that the clasp actually covers the next hole immediate that is smaller. So even if this one was to show through the band, this kind of covers it to give it that really clean look still. So if you're wearing it casually with one notch bigger than what you usually would for sports, it hides it. So again, I love how Marathon did this. None of the holes are showing when you're wearing it regularly for a really, really clean looking watch band. Very cool. Again, I'm not sure if Marathon's the only one to do this. I'm not a huge watch nut, so I don't follow many watch products, but it's the first time I saw it for sure. The watch band has two of these strap holders, which are kind of thin, and if I had one complaint, only one complaint for this band, it would be that I wish they had just maybe had one big one. Usually I'll just have them together like this anyway, so it basically just serves as one big one. I have occasionally had one of them slip off like that, but honestly not a big deal at all. Great watch band. I really, really like the watch band, Marathon included, with this watch here.